Back in 2007, Hollywood's idea of horror was gritty remakes of 80s slasher movies and a lazy ghost movie where nothing happens. Meanwhile, in Europe, the French had been taking a different approach. Their idea was to bring horror to the extremes. Welcome to our discussion of Inside, a film about a pregnant woman whose Christmas Eve is ruined when an eerie stalker breaks into her home and tries to cut her baby out of her stomach with a pair of scissors. It's a gross, blood-soaked hour and 20 minutes that is a perfect kickoff to 2023's season of Spooky of the Week.
We're back! Oh wait, shit, that's the wrong catchphrase. It's time for Spooky of the Week!
We have a Spooky of the Week catchphrase?
That's the catchphrase. That's my catchphrase. I do it every time.
He does it every time.
Yeah,
we're back.
And I pointed out.
Maybe you should watch some of our shows.
Well, maybe it's so forgettable.
Continue. How dare you?
This is our yearly tradition where every week in the month of spooks, we watch a different spooky movie. And this year, our favorite season. Last year, we did an experiment where we did a theme, and so all of the movies that we did were found.
And the experiment failed.
The experiment, well, it failed for finding any good movies. It was successful in making content.
Gundam, dude.
And lots of
Gundam was great.
And Horror in the High Desert.
And Horror in the High.
This month, the theme is going to be Christmas horror. So it's kind of a broad blanket as long as it like happens on or around Christmas, and it's kind of brought up at least like multiple times.
So it doesn't have to be a Christmas movie.
Not exclusively.
If you Google
we'll have interesting
Christmas
stuff
horror movie and it comes up, it counts. That's our criteria.
That's our criteria.
That too.
The first movie we watched was Inside, and it was Kevin's recommendation.
Some of you may have followed Spooky of the Week for a while, and I'm not positive if it made it into any of the cuts, but I've been trying to get this movie seen, I think, since like maybe 2015.
Yeah.
2015, 2016. It's been a long time.
Literally since this was the Comments in Your Pocket podcast.
Yes. Inside.
What is Inside? And specify which one you're talking about. Not Bo Burnham's
not Bo Burnham,
Inside,
not the one
that there's a
came
movie
out
that
this
just
year.
came out this year called Inside.
Inside
Or
with
the
Willem
animated
Dafoe.
one.
That's
or the-
Inside Out.
Oh,
Inside Out.
Yeah.
And there's a remake of Inside called Inside.
Called Inside.
There's a
yeah.
remake?
Yeah.
Yes,
The
it's an
American
American
remake.
Yeah, there's an American remake of it.
Interesting.
God bless Hollywood.
Came out 2016.
And this Inside, if you IMDb it, it's like the 15th one. You type in
Yeah.
Inside, which was annoying.
It's true. It's very annoying,
it
no
is
matter where
annoying.
you search it. I saw it not really knowing what to expect other than it's in a very specific niche genre, which is called French Extreme or French Extremism. And it's a series of movies that kind of came out in the 2000s that the French made where, while we were over here doing remakes of movies people had already seen, they were over there being like, let's push it, let's go farther.
Ah, the French.
It's gonna be gross. It's gonna hurt your mind. It's gonna do all these things. Like movies like Martyrs or High Tension are also very popular in the genre. And so I had watched the other ones and I was like, oh, those are pretty sweet. I should see Inside because that's kind of like the other like top three generally. So I saw it and I was shocked and I was horrified. And I loved every second of that, and so I'm like, someone needs to see this and do what I did and not know what's going on.
So, Sam Slade, what did you think of Inside?
Thoughts going in though, right?
We're skipping thoughts going in. We're flying right past
We've
that.
done that.
I'm saying we skip it.
Okay.
Thoughts going in
Wow.
and review, it's all the same
Okay.
thing.
Wow.
Yep.
Then yeah, Kevin recommended this movie to me a lot of times, and I've always wanted to see it. I thought it was pretty interesting, very unique, and really disturbing. That's just my basic thoughts on it.
Yeah. Non-spoiler.
So you wrapped up thoughts going in addition
in
to
a
an
little
opinion.
bow.
It just
Yeah.
wasn't very fun though. I didn't like doing it.
He hates anyone telling him like to
I don't
speak.
like that. I didn't like doing that. I like to talk more
That's true.
and
Keegan.
just waste time.
No, what Sam Slade wants to do is, okay, so in 2015, Kevin recommended it to me, and I remember, you know, he was like kind of recommending it to me. He kept saying Spooky of the Week.
See, all this time you're making, I could have been doing that. I could have been doing that.
I knew the basic premise, which basic premise. I don't think we've said the basic premise. A pregnant woman is home alone, and another woman breaks into her house and is trying to take her baby.
Yeah.
Out of the pregnant
simple
woman.
as you can get.
I didn't even know that going into it.
I wish it was completely blind for me, because I mean, not that it like makes it worse, but I wonder what it's like seeing it,
Yeah.
not even knowing that.
I really didn't like it very much. So the main thing with French extremism, as you kind of said, is like it's pushing the boundaries, is going really extreme.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the wrong parts of the internet, so I have seen a lot of horrific shit. So it doesn't shock me. It doesn't horrify me. So I'm just watching it, going, okay. Now what's happening? Okay. So for me, I didn't get a lot out of it.
The first 30 minutes, I was completely enthralled. I was like, this is amazing. I was even live texting Kevin, like, this is so freaky. This scene just happened. I'm scared shitless. And then the movie almost completely lost me. Like almost exactly at the 30-minute mark. I don't think that I would say I didn't like it. Like, by the end of it, I was like, overall, it's only an hour and 20 minutes, and it never stopped being good. It lost me significantly after a certain point. If you're into gore, if you're into...
See, for me, it's not, I don't think it's a bad movie, and I'd say overall I liked it. I think its main hook of the movie isn't what I watch a movie for. I think its main hook of the movie is having graphic, like, horrific violence.
Yeah.
Like, that's like that is, if you're really freaked out by that, and you're like, I want to see a movie that's gonna just be so messed up.
Yeah.
And is gonna just push the envelope on that.
I'm fine with that. To me, that doesn't bother me. That's not something I'm factoring in.
Well, I'm saying if that's not like enough to have a whole movie be about that, then it's not going to be that interesting to you. Is what I'm saying. Or for me, I was like,
Which is fair.
like because at first it's like really intense and like suspenseful, and then I say it's not like suspenseful. After a certain point, it's just like, this is violent.
really wouldn't recommend it to anybody that doesn't like excessive blood.
If you like horror movies, you like bloody movies, you know, you'll probably
like gross
and it's not fun blood. It's I guess that's like the distinguishing factors. Like you could say like The Hateful Eight has a lot of blood, or
it's more sadistic.
Kill Bill has a lot of blood. It's blood that is meant to be shocking.
And if you're into that, I don't think I can actually recommend a movie higher. Like in terms, like if that's your thing, like I don't think anything is this good and does that. Usually when it does that, it's hard to keep a good movie because usually they're focusing on that stuff. And there are other ones like this that I would generally recommend, but I would say if you do like that stuff, you can't get a better movie than this.
To reference another movie that we watched, Bliss, that came out.
It was not as bloody.
It was not as bloody. Like
Bliss?
Bliss. It's
not a
just
shit
don't
movie.
watch it. That movie never had. And by the end of it, when it has its big bloody finale, I was like, this is completely unearned. Even though the movie loses me, I by the end of it, I was like, okay, there's some cool effects going on here.
For sure, the effects are gnarly.
The effects works top notch.
Generally, I'd recommend it to horror fans specifically. I wouldn't recommend it to a general audience. I wouldn't. This isn't a turn on for Halloween.
My classic sit down with your significant other gauge. This is a hard no. Like this is not a get laid type movie. This is actually good birth control. Like if you want to not get pregnant, like let's say your girlfriend or whatever, she's trying to like get you to put a baby.
This will
in her.
happen.
This will happen.
This will happen.
This will happen. This is real.
This is real. This happened yesterday.
This happened.
I want a baby.
The concept of it is what really drew me in. I think what holds it for me, where I'm just like, this would be a really terrifying scenario, and I think the movie does execute on that well.
There's a shot in the beginning that's like one of the creepiest things I've seen in a movie recently.
She's in the background?
Yes.
Dude, that's
so
a great shot.
Fucking good.
So good.
It's terrifying.
Especially since she's so hard to see.
Yeah.
You're just like, no, she's there.
It tricks
I
you.
had to rewind it. She's watching the news and there's a push in on her. But they do this thing where the cat is also like passing in front of her and behind her. And so your mind is already like kind of, because I didn't even notice it the first time. I thought I saw something, but I was like, oh, was it the cat? Like I literally like made up something like, oh, that was probably just the cat. And I rewinded it. I was like, no, that's the fucking creepiest thing I've ever seen.
Not even just that, she looks how she did in the picture that she just took. Like you've seen this picture and now you're like, that is the same image.
That's the same image.
And then she's in the room with her. And then the movie shifts perspectives and the killer becomes the main character for a scene or two. Instantly just not as creepy to me because I'm now seeing her like go through the house and she starts preparing the scissors or whatever. And from that point on, things just kind of kept piling on for me where like just little nitpicks. Like I felt like every single decision that every character made from that point on was just the dumbest possible decision that they could have made in that situation. And that's the only reason the movie happens. Like there's just so many little choices.
There's definitely a few points where I was like, well, that's just dumb movie something. Like that's just dumb in this movie so that the movie can keep happening.
So the guy comes in And I was like, okay, I'm liking this scene. The boss comes in and he starts talking with her, and I was like, oh,
he doesn't know that she's not there.
Yeah, and I was like, this is all good. The movie kind of reeled me back in a little bit, and I was like, oh, she's playing it up. And then the mom walks in and she has the pin, and I was like, oh, she's gonna kill her mom.
Gonna kill her mom.
And then the boss is gonna kill. And I felt like everything like that. For the rest of the movie, I was just ahead of it. Like I just saw the entire map of the movie.
The setups start happening, and then you're like, okay, yeah.
And it didn't do any, like from that point on, it didn't do anything that super surprised me. And then when it did, I was like, okay.
Yeah, that did surprise you?
By the end of it, the only thing that surprised, and I say surprise in air quotes, but by this point it was kind of like an eye roll, was when the cop guy came back and he went crazy and he but
when he starts beating her stomach. I was like,
I was just like,
that wasn't the cop though.
That was the cop.
Yeah, that wasn't the cop.
That was the criminal guy.
No, the criminal was dead.
No, the criminal was
not
dead.
the criminal.
No, it's the cop guy.
Because the movie reached a point after she killed her mom where I was like, I don't care if anyone dies at this point. Like if the main character dies right now, I don't give a fuck. Like it just she started acting kind of incompetently, which is fine. But then every other character was also acting incompetently, and I like the killer even was being incompetent. But she was still winning. Like it was still like everything was like working out for her. And I just kind of got frustrated with it.
Underestimated her, dude.
I just got frustrated with it, and like the cops that come in. I did like that they put it together. They see that she's not pregnant. They solve that mystery.
Yeah,
but then they
was
both decide to just be morons. Like one of them goes upstairs. Neither of them pull their gun on her, even though they were called there that night. For like they know she's dangerous. That's why they came back. Obviously, they don't decide to like pull a gun on her. He takes his time cuffing her. I'm just like, the whole thing frustrated me because I was just like, there's ways around this scene that are less frustrating. And then on top of that, the one cop guy, he calls his girlfriend. I was like, okay, he's gonna fucking die because he just had a conversation with his girlfriend, and he hears gunshots. Instead of calling for backup, he decides to tie a criminal to himself and then go inside.
That would be funny in another movie. He should have just handcuffed him to the car.
Yeah,
also, the other thing that's going through my brain is, this is France. This is not America. Gunshots are much less common.
For sure.
Why are all the neighbors not calling French 911? They're there. They're home. They would be like...
They're Christmas shots, dude.
I would be fine with that if he calls in and they're like, oh, we're dealing with a riot or whatever, because they kept cutting...
Because talk about
it just bothered me that wasn't part of the thought process.
Can't handle one woman.
Yeah, the first thing he does is to tie a criminal up. And again, it would be funny in something else, but I was just like, this was your first thought, is to literally handcuff a criminal to you and then run into a house where you just heard gunshots?
So I would agree with a lot of that. For me, I just was, I appreciated the pacing of the movie, where it all felt like just like, this is all happening so fast and you can't, what are you supposed to do to react to all this?
Yeah.
And there's like 20 to 30 minutes of build-up.
Trying to empathize with her situation, it's just kind of like, yeah, what is she supposed to do? And all of this happens so fast. The movie's only an hour and 20 minutes. It feels like it's almost all real time.
A movie that reminds me similar in premise a little bit, though it's much more dragged out, was actually one we talked about a little bit earlier, Bubba Hotep. Because it's really good because the main characters are somewhat helpless, and you feel like they are helpless in the situation that they are confronting, and you know why they are limited. And it's kind of like that with this, where it's like, she's a pregnant woman, she can't do action movie stuff, she's physically constrained, she's situationally constrained, and the same thing in Bubba Hotep, which is just a better movie in my opinion.
You can like Bubba Hotep more.
Yeah, Bubba Hotep's good. I don't even have any idea how to relate the two at all. I haven't seen Bubba Hotep as well.
Well, the horror comes from the same thing in both of them. What you're talking about is like, it's fast paced. She can't do anything to escape the situation. Bubba Hotep, they're stuck in the situation. They can't escape. No one believes them. Help's not coming.
When you don't see a lot of like good movies, I can understand why like you'd be like, oh, what have I seen that's close to this? Bubba Hotep, I guess. I don't know. They can't move around a lot. They're old. Shoot, I think that's it. Because in my head, I'm like, yeah, there's like a lot of thrillers where like, oh, someone's either pregnant, someone's in a wheelchair, someone has a thing, and they can't, or they're deaf,
or they're deaf,
or they're.
My issue is not with connecting with the main character. In fact, I thought she was literally all the side characters are what bothered me. Like every single one.
No, yeah,
of them,
I get what you're saying, dude.
The formula was exactly the same. Come into the house, get fooled, and then die.
Which is why, like I was saying in my like closing point before, was like the movie, the core of the movie, the point of the movie is the gore. Like that is what you're here for. Like is for that kind of like violence, and that's being the horror instead of the story or the characters. It's mostly just like, here's a situation and here's how so many people die.
Yeah. This is just a personal thing with me and movies like this where there's a character that is put in a situation, I want them to live. And I know that that doesn't work for every movie, but I feel like for this movie, I want, like, she should have lived.
I agree.
And
I'm sorry.
Here's the thing.
No, absolutely fucking not.
I'm not super against the ending and her dying. I wasn't like, I think Alec probably is more against it, but I was also like hoping she'd live. But her dying, it doesn't like bug me. It doesn't ruin the movie for me at all. It doesn't take.
I've seen it the other way.
In the
American, in the remake, oh, she beats her and she kills her in a pool and she succeeds, yay, and she survives and the cops come and they save her, and I was like, this is an infinitely worse ending.
I hated all of the villain's motivation and
I was going to ask what. So I know that she was involved in the car
I
accident.
hate you for that. You're dumb.
She was the other person in the car accident, so they hit each other's cars.
That's
and
okay.
she was also pregnant, but her baby died in that.
Oh, okay.
And I don't necessarily have a problem with that in theory. I have a problem with how laid out for the audience it is. I would have preferred that if it was completely under the surface, or if the audience was able to, like, kind of discover. It's just like laid out for you and it's told to you by that character, as opposed to it if it was revealed through details or little things that, you know, maybe she was wearing something or she had like something like that, I think I would have found it more interesting. But the fact that it's just kind of like told to you, and then you know, you're kind of supposed to empathize with her at the end. I was like, I don't give a fuck about this lady. She's been trying to kill this pregnant lady for an hour. I burn her, burn her.
Yeah, keep burning her.
The main thing in my mind is I felt there should have been a lot less side characters. And I felt there should have been a lot more back and forth in terms of dialogue between the intruder and the woman, where you can find out their backstories. And if it's like, oh, the pregnant woman and her husband were driving drunk, or like they were somehow completely at fault for the accident, and it cost this other woman her kid, or, you know, her pregnancy, you know, completely ruined this other woman's life and all this. And I'm like, okay, I'm understanding her now. I'm sympathizing now. Instead, it's just like, I'm the villain. I am here to kill.
I thought it was going to be more ethereal. I guess I was expecting more from the movie in not holding her hand at all. I never wanted an explanation of why she was killed.
I was surprised when we got one.
Yeah, my initial thought when I started the movie, because all I knew is the basics, is she was too old to have a kid, and this is the only way she could have another child.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was infertile in all her previous kids she mentioned.
There's little details that I picked up on the second time, that because she is older and basically passes for her mom, and the things that she was kind of saying to it when it was in the womb, like it's like, oh, she had worked so hard to get one, and then she finally has one at a guy.
I also think it's totally plausible that because of the accident, she can't have one again now.
I'm fine. I like all that.
Yeah,
the only thing, my biggest problem with it is how it's laid out for the audience.
Yeah, I think they could have easily done a thing where the killer lady who's trying to get the baby is hinting at their history. She should know who she is technically, because they hate each other. She should know who that is.
Yeah.
But she doesn't really know. But she should be able to figure it out.
She's so focused on her own crap.
And I think over the course of the movie, she could probably figure it out.
Yeah.
That could have been cool.
Instead, we get
a flashback.
We get a flashback, and she tells her. That I didn't love. I didn't hate it. By this point of the movie, more of it was annoying me than was working for me. The gore's cool, but like these story beats are just not hitting how I want them to be hitting.
And for me, the gore wasn't shocking or anything like that. So it was kind of one of those ones of like, all right.
Gore's not jerked off to something worse than this morning.
If the gore is not horrifying, it removes most of the horror from the movie, and then you're left relying on the story beats, which felt really weak.
Yeah. So I was going in because the setup, and possibly why I was so disappointed, and this will be the last thing I say, is that I thought the first 30 minutes were fantastic, like amazing, some really, really great setups, and the only reason I was disappointed was because I thought the rest of the movie fell short of that. Now, I'm not saying it's bad or that you shouldn't see it or anything like that. It's just from what the beginning of the movie set up for me to the end, there was a disconnect.
Yeah, all those things are like, to me, like, oh, this big issue. I was like, yeah, it was a little dumb, but it's like, to me, it's like that big. It's like, yeah, I guess that kind of bothered me, but none of that ever broke my immersion in the movie. I was invested and interested the whole time. Yeah, they could have done that reveal better, but I was like, oh man, that took me out of the movie. I was like, well, yeah, I guess that's keeps it from being perfect, but like everything else works so well for me. I was invested from start to finish, and I'm trying to figure out, like, why the heck would anyone do something so horrific? Like, why is so when I got the explanation, I was like, oh, the whole time you're rooting for the mother. You're like, oh yeah, the mother should survive because it's her baby, blah blah blah. And then by then you're like, oh, it's a mother that's after her. So now it's like, if you feel bad for one, you should feel bad for the other. And now it's like the butting heads. kind of makes the climax more.
I would completely agree with that if there was more clear that she did do something wrong in the accent. Like it was her fault. Like, because I don't, that's my problem. I don't feel bad for the other woman at all. We've been watching her try to kill the protagonist for an hour. And so
maybe the other woman was at fault and she lost her own baby due to her own.
Because the way it's set up in the movie is that like you don't know. So I'm like, no, I don't.
It almost looks like a mutual.
I've been with this person for, I don't care if she was a mother. She's been trying to kill this lady's baby intentionally for an hour. I don't care if her baby died unintentionally.
Yeah.
Anyways,
something that I liked about it towards the end there, when the cop guy goes crazy and starts hitting her right in the fetus.
He literally punches.
It does a really good job at like hammering home like what the actual horror or plot of this movie, where it's like most horror movies are just this guy or whatever is trying to kill this person, where this movie's like, no, this person is trying to get this person's baby.
Yeah.
So that moment was really cool for me, where I was like, oh no, she's not trying to kill. Just kill this.
Yeah, she doesn't give a.
She is after getting the baby.
Wants the baby, like plain and simple. And
you can see her motivation clear in that moment.
Thank you for watching the first episode of Spooky the Week 2023. We got lots of more.
Tune in next week for another
Christmas horror movie.
Do I say what I'm recommending, or does it just pop up?
I'll probably cut it out, but say it.
Okay, what did I recommend?